"You're an embarrassment, Dad. Don't come to my wedding." The words, delivered through the phone with the sterile clarity of a surgeon's scalpel, didn't just wound me, they hollowed me out. My daughter, Sarah, didn't raise her voice. That was the worst part. It was the calm, measured tone of someone stating an undeniable fact, like the sky being blue or water being wet. Julian's family is, well, they're prominent people, important people. A construction foreman with dirt under his fingernails and calloused hands just doesn't fit the picture. I'm sorry. The apology was a flimsy paper shield, an obligatory courtesy she felt she had to extend before severing a limb. Leaning against the worn doorframe of my workshop, the familiar, comforting scent of cedar sawdust and wood glue suddenly smelled acrid, like the ashes of a life's work. I looked down at my hands. They were the hands that had built her a magnificent dollhouse when she was 6, complete with tiny, working window sashes. They were the hands that had held her steady when she learned to ride her bike, and the ones that had worked double shifts for 25 years, ever since her mother passed, to ensure she never wanted for anything. Every splinter, every scar, every aching joint was a testament to my love for her. I'd put her through a top-tier university, paid for her sleek city apartment, and answered every call, no matter the hour. And now, those same hands made me an embarrassment. I swallowed the thick, bitter lump in my throat, a toxic cocktail of grief and white-hot rage. My voice, when I finally found it, was shockingly steady. "I understand, sweetheart," I said, the term of endearment feeling like a ghost on my tongue. "I wish you all the best." I hung up the phone, walked over to my laptop, and canceled the flight and hotel reservation. Then I went back to my workbench. I wished her well, but my hands had one last wedding gift to build for her. For years, I had deliberately cultivated the image of a simple construction foreman. It was a quiet shield, a way to keep my life uncomplicated, and, I had hoped, to keep Sarah grounded. The truth was far different. My business, Mason Artisans, was a name spoken in hushed, reverent tones in the circles of the ultra-wealthy. We didn't build houses, we created architectural art. We were the craftsmen that billionaires and old-money dynasties called when they wanted a library carved from a single, ancient oak, or a boardroom that exuded centuries of power. My identity as F. Mason was the firm's greatest secret, an enigma that added to our mystique, and allowed me to live a normal life. Sarah knew nothing of the silent auctions, the 7-figure contracts, or the magazine features that never showed my face. She just saw her dad, the guy who smelled like pine and came home tired. Weeks after her call, my fiercely loyal assistant, Maria, buzzed my office intercom. Her voice was electric. "Frank, you are not going to believe this. I've just received an inquiry. It's from the Vanderbilt Corporation." My heart stopped for a beat. I looked at the intricate blueprints for a private observatory on my desk. "What do they want, Maria?" I asked, keeping my voice level. "They're planning a wedding for their son, Julian. They want a custom-built, open-air wedding pavilion on their lakeside estate. They said their planner told them, for something truly unforgettable, there was only one name to even consider." The irony was so thick I could taste it. They wanted my art, but not the artist. A cold, calm fire began to spread through my chest, burning away the grief and leaving behind pure, unadulterated resolve. I picked up the phone. "Maria," I said slowly, "draft a proposal. Use our premier materials estimate, and then I want you to triple our fee." The negotiation call was precisely the circus of arrogance I had anticipated. Marcus Vanderbilt, Julian's father, had a voice that sounded perpetually unimpressed. He believed he was speaking to a subordinate, some project manager for the elusive F. Mason, and his tone was dismissive. "Your price is frankly obscene," he blustered, the sound tinny through the voice modulator I used for all client-facing calls. We are talking about a temporary wooden structure, not the Sistine Chapel. This is highway robbery. I let him spew his indignation, listening patiently. When he finally ran out of steam, I responded, my modulated voice sounding deep and impassive. Mr. Vanderbilt, you are not purchasing lumber and nails. You are commissioning a temporary monument. My work is art, and its value is reflected in the price. The fee is non-negotiable. I paused, as is my artistic integrity clause. This clause was my masterstroke, a piece of legal poetry buried in the jargon of every contract. It stated, in elegant terms, that the project's successful completion was contingent upon a foundation of mutual respect and honor between patron and artist. Any significant act of dishonor, disrespect, or willful embarrassment directed toward me or my craft would render the contract void, with all payments becoming non-refundable damages. It was my shield against Philistines like Marcus. He grumbled, calling it artsy nonsense, but his wife, Eleanor, who craved the social capital of an F. Mason original more than air itself, overruled him. They signed the contract. The 50% deposit, a sum that could purchase a luxury yacht, was wired to my company's account. They had just paid the man they deemed too embarrassing to attend his own daughter's wedding. Work began immediately on their sprawling, manicured estate. I was there every single day, a ghost in plain sight. Dressed in my oldest flannel shirt, worn work boots, and a faded baseball cap pulled low, I was just another laborer, invisible to the family and their staff. One sunny afternoon, Sarah and Julian strolled down to inspect the progress. My heart hammered against my ribs as I watched her from behind a stack of cedar planks. She was glowing. "Oh, Julian, isn't it magnificent?" she gushed, gesturing to the soaring arches we were raising. "They say F. Mason himself is personally overseeing the construction. Can you imagine? He's a total recluse, an absolute genius." Julian, looking smug, wrapped an arm around her. "Only the best for my future wife. He's lucky to have us as patrons." He then turned and saw me. "You, there," he called, snapping his fingers. "Get a move on with that joinery. We're on a schedule." I just nodded, hiding my face, and went back to work. The final twist, the one that hardened my resolve from diamond to something even tougher, came a week before the wedding. My phone rang, and it was Sarah. Her voice was coated in a thick, syrupy sweetness I hadn't heard since she wanted to borrow money for a car. "Daddy, I know things have been tense, but Julian and I were talking, and we think we figured out a way for you to come." Hope, that stupid, treacherous thing, flickered in my chest. "Oh?" I said. "Yes, you could come to the reception. We could tell everyone you're a distant cousin of Mom's from out of state. That way, no one has to know, you know." The flicker of hope was extinguished, crushed under the weight of the insult. It wasn't an apology. It was a demotion. She wasn't inviting her father. She was offering a charity ticket to a shameful secret. "Thank you, Sarah," I said, my voice eerily calm. "But I think it's best I stick to our original plan." What she couldn't know was that my original plan had evolved. The pavilion was not just a structure. It was a trap. Its brilliant design, with custom-forged interlocking pins and counterweighted beams, was engineered for rapid assembly and, more importantly, even more rapid disassembly. The week leading up to the wedding was drenched in the kind of perfect weather money can't buy. The finished pavilion stood on the great lawn overlooking the lake like a prayer made of wood. It was my masterpiece. A cathedral of hand-carved cedar and dark oak, its soaring arches created a nave open to the sky, while intricate latticework walls cast shifting patterns of light and shadow on the polished flagstone floor. It smelled of the deep forest and quiet devotion. Even Marcus Vanderbilt, a man seemingly immune to beauty, was impressed. He paraded his golf buddies through the structure, pontificating about the grain of the wood and the complexity of the joinery, as if he had designed it himself. The final payment was transferred to my firm's account. All the money was secure. My crew, a team of artisans who had been with me for decades and knew the whole sordid story, gave me a subtle nod as they made their final checks. They weren't just my employees, they were my family, and they were furious on my behalf. The day before the ceremony, I dismissed the crew early and stood alone inside the pavilion as the setting sun bled orange and purple across the sky. The golden light bathed the wood, making it seem alive. I ran my hand over a smooth, curved archway and thought of my wife, Elizabeth. I could almost hear her voice, gentle but firm. "Two wrongs don't make a right, Frank. She's still our little girl." A wave of profound sadness washed over me. This was my daughter's wedding day, a day I had dreamed of since I first held her in my arms. My elaborate revenge felt righteous, but it was also a scorched earth policy. Was this lesson worth the cost of burning down the last rickety bridge to my only child? The grief was suffocating. Then I remembered her voice on the phone, cold, dismissive, final. An embarrassment. I remembered Julian snapping his fingers at me. And I remembered the final, cruel offer to attend as a lie, a counterfeit cousin. The sadness receded, crystallizing into a hard, cold resolve. This was no longer just about revenge. It was a lesson in character, a debt of honor that the Vanderbilts and my daughter were about to pay in full. That night, under the cover of darkness, my plan shifted into its final phase. The massive, gleaming white catering trucks began to arrive, parking discreetly behind the main house. Among them was our own truck, a plain, unmarked commercial vehicle, its contents far more valuable than canopies and champagne. My crew, my loyal band of craftsmen, had changed. Their dusty work clothes were replaced with the crisp black and white uniforms of the Vanderbilt's hired catering staff. They moved with the quiet, confident efficiency of a special operations team, blending in seamlessly. One moment they were master carpenters, the next they were valets parking luxury cars, waiters polishing glasses, and kitchen hands arranging appetizers. They took their positions without a single person giving them a second glance. The stage was set. The gilded audience was arriving. The twist was no longer about if I would strike, but when. I would let them have their perfect moment. I would let them reach the absolute pinnacle of their social triumph, and then I would pull the entire world out from under them. The wedding day unfolded as a breathtaking spectacle of ostentatious wealth. Hundreds of guests, draped in couture and dripping with diamonds, dotted the lawn like exotic birds, their champagne flutes glinting in the afternoon sun. All of them, without exception, gazed in reverent awe at the pavilion. I stood near the back, by a large oak tree, still dressed in my simple work clothes, a forgotten shadow in a world of blinding, performative light. I watched as Sarah, on the arm of Marcus Vanderbilt, began her walk down the aisle. She was undeniably beautiful, a queen gliding toward her throne. A radiant, polished smile was fixed on her face as she reached the altar where a beaming Julian waited. The string quartet fell silent. The officiant began to speak, his voice sonorous and self-important. The guests hushed, their faces masks of rapt attention. This was it, the apex of their social climbing, the merger of two powerful families, sanctified within the walls of a masterpiece. I waited. I let the moment stretch, letting them savor their victory. The officiant reached the pivotal line. If anyone here has any reason why these two should not be joined in holy matrimony, let them speak now or forever hold their peace. A profound silence hung in the air. I took that as my cue. I stepped forward from the shadows of the oak tree. My worn boots made no sound on the soft grass. A few guests in the back rows turned, their expressions shifting from polite interest to annoyance. Sarah's eyes found mine. I saw a flash of pure, undiluted panic, quickly replaced by a hot, furious glare. "Dad," she hissed, her voice a venomous whisper that carried further than she intended. "What are you doing here? I told you." Marcus Vanderbilt puffed out his chest. "Security," he bellowed, his face turning a blotchy red. "Get this vagrant off my property immediately." "I wouldn't do that," I said. My voice was not loud, but it was clear and steady, and it cut through the air like a chisel through soft pine. I looked directly at my daughter, my heart a cold, heavy stone in my chest. "You told me not to come to your wedding because your father, a simple construction foreman, was an embarrassment to you." I then turned my gaze to Marcus. "And you, sir, paid that same embarrassment over $2 million to build this work of art." A wave of confused, excited murmurs swept through the crowd. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a small, intricately carved piece of cedar, the master pin, the keystone to the entire structure. "My name is Frank Mason," I announced, letting my voice ring out. "But you and the rest of the world know me as F. Mason." The gasp from the crowd was a collective, physical shock. Sarah's face drained of all color, leaving her makeup standing out like a painted mask on a statue. Julian's jaw hung open as he looked from me to the pavilion and back, the gears of his simple mind grinding to a halt. "This structure," I continued, projecting my voice so every single guest could hear, "was commissioned under a legally binding contract. A contract which explicitly stipulated a foundation of mutual respect and honor. By declaring its creator an embarrassment and barring him from the very event he was hired to grace, you, Sarah, and you, Mr. Vanderbilt, have committed a profound act of dishonor. You have voided the contract." Marcus sputtered, his bravado crumbling. That's preposterous. I'll sue you. I'll ruin you." I gave him a small, sad smile. "You can try, but the contract is ironclad, and my work is leaving with me." On my subtle signal, a quiet chaos erupted. The waiters stopped serving. The valets dropped their keys. The kitchen staff abandoned their stations. My crew, my army, moved with the synchronized precision of a military drill team. They converged on the pavilion, and with practiced ease, they began to pull the hidden pins and unlatch the locking joints. The magnificent structure began to come apart. The soaring arches were lowered. The intricate latticed walls were detached and carried away. Within 15 minutes of methodical silent work, the glorious pavilion was gone, reduced to a stack of valuable lumber being loaded onto our unmarked truck. All that remained was a bare flagstone floor, a bride and groom standing at a naked altar, and hundreds of horrified guests staring in stunned disbelief. I looked at my daughter one last time. Her face was a ruin of shattered pride and dawning, soul-crushing humiliation. The anger inside me was gone, replaced by a vast, cold emptiness. I had lost my daughter today, but I had reclaimed my dignity. I turned my back on the wreckage of her perfect wedding and walked away, not looking back. It was a terrible price to pay, but it was the only one I had left. What goes around comes around. If you believe in karma, deliver some good karma to this channel by hitting subscribe and liking the video. We appreciate your support, and we'll be back with more justice soon.